This is what killed my bees. November, I don't know what it is, November 11th, something like that. It is the end of fall, start of winter. We've actually had maybe 7 or 8 frosts. We had a 20-degree night last night. It's almost winter time here at Whistle's Thicket. If you've been following along, you know that I had a recent video where I said my bees absconded. That was a new word for me for beekeeping. That's when the bees just leave your hive. And I think they did leave, but upon further investigation and from the help of some friends, some subscribers, I decided to take a closer look. And actually, a big help was my mentor. The two of us actually work at the same school, and we started a beekeeping club this year, which is pretty awesome. We have about 15 students in it, and we made chapstick recently, which was pretty cool. And we're learning about bees. We're hoping to get bees at our high school this spring, which is pretty awesome. So as an idea for the club, we decided to look at some of my deep hive body frames to see if the students could help us figure out what killed my hive. And this is what they found. Varroa mites. My first hive is completely gone. They're dead. And this is the culprit. This is a mite that I believe was introduced in the 90s to America. And it's been destroying bees everywhere. This is a major reason that most beekeepers lose their hives, and a major reason why they quit beekeeping is this little tiny mite. It's tiny to us, but my mentor likes to say it's like a basketball basketball sized tick living underneath your armpit. That's what it's like to honeybees. And what's worse is they attack the larva of the bees, so the bees don't even have a chance. They grow slowly, but they grow exponentially, and before you know it, the bees are gone. But I'm not giving up. I'm going to tell you what I'm hoping to do differently, and I still have a hive that is still surviving right now. I'm going to tell you what I did differently with the hive that's surviving. Some of it was luck. Some of it just happened, but I don't know if that affected why the hive survived or not. And I'm going to show you a closer look at what a Varroa mite looks like underneath a microscope. So the benefit of being a beekeeper and a science teacher and starting a beekeeping club at my high school with my mentor is that since I'm a science teacher, we were able to look at Varroa mites underneath a microscope. So let's take a closer look at what these mites look like up close and personal. And just remember, this would be like a giant tick the size of a basketball living off of your armpit. Let's take a look. Those things are pretty gruesome. And that's what killed my first hive. What did I do wrong? I don't think I did anything wrong. I actually, well, I guess if I did something wrong, it was not knowing that the mites were that bad. But I did what I was supposed to do. I treated my hive with formic acid, an organic treatment, in August. So lots of people, there's controversies. Should you treat? Should you not treat? I'm not going to get into that in this video. I don't know enough about the subject. I have my opinion, but I don't want to get into that right now on this video. So I treated my hives with formic acid as a 14-day treatment, and that's supposed to knock the mite problem way down. And the problem is these days, you're not really getting rid of the mites. The mites are kind of here to stay. You're just trying to lower their population. It's extremely hard because mites and bees, although bees are insects and mites are arachnids, they are still closely related to each other in the grand scheme of the animal kingdom. So it's hard to treat for the mites when they're so closely related to bees. So it's tough to treat for mites. You got to find something that's going to kill the mite but not the bee, and that is a challenge. So I did treat my hives, and that still did not save my hive. And it was my biggest hive, which I guess that's one of the signs of Varroa mites, is your biggest hive collapses first. I don't even know, actually. I'm going to do an inspection on my second hive, and they seem to be doing well, but I haven't actually opened up the hive in the last week or so. So my second hive could crash as well, which is going to be sad. But this is what happened to my second hive. This may be why my second hive is still here. First and foremost, as soon as I got the queen, or as soon as I got this hive, which was later than my first hive, about a month later, the queen died, which means that my hive made a new queen. That was 24 days that they were not having a queen, which means that the queen wasn't laying, which is where the mite lays their eggs in the larva. So I had a 23-day period or so where there weren't any mites really, because there weren't any larvae for the mites to lay their eggs on. So I think that helped. And a second thing is my second hive has a screen bottom board. My first hive had a solid board. There's been studies that show that a screen bottom board helps lower mites by about 12 to 15%. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but it really is. So I'm going to go with screen boards next year on all of my hives, I think. So I think that helped. It's basically, if a bee gets a mite off, they fall through the screen board instead of going back down into the hive, and then they can jump on another bee. So I think that helped this hive out. Here's what I am going to do differently next spring. First, I'm going to try to do a better job of checking for mites so that I know when there's a problem. First year beekeeper, so much to learn. And there's so many pests and parasites that you have to worry about with bees that I'm still learning about these things. So I'm gonna try to be more vigilant with my mite checks. The second thing I'm going to do is I've done some research, and the mites like drone brood, which are the male bees. They like the drone brood more than the worker larvae, which are the female bees, for a few reasons. First, drones are bigger, so there's more food for the mites to eat, the larvae of the mites, and there's a longer larval stage for the male bees, for the drones, so that gives the mites more time to grow. So there's something called, I guess it's a drone frame. It's pre-made wax that encourages the bees when they draw the comb to make larger drone cells as opposed to worker cells, which are smaller. And then the queen will lay only drones on that frame. And then what you do is you take that frame out after there's larvae in it and you freeze it. You have to be, very on time with this method, but you freeze that frame, and the theory is that the mites will be mainly on that frame as opposed to the other frames. And then you freeze it, and then you can put that comb, that frame, back in your hive, and the queen will keep using it, and every now and then you take it out, and that should keep your population in check. I'm going to be trying that and see how that works. I'm going to keep treating in the fall, but I think I'm going to also treat in the spring. So I'm going to try to treat twice a year organically, formic acid. The third thing I'm looking into, it's called the Bee Gym. It's a guy, a beekeeper in the UK, and he's made this little contraption that helps the bees flick the mites off of their thorax, their bodies. There's a couple different ways. There's some strings on it that are like violin strings, and then there's these little back scratchers, basically, which kind of makes sense. I mean, if a dog has fleas, it's going to be scratching. And the bees, of course, can't use their hands, really. So I am going to look into what's called the Bee Gym. It seems kind of affordable. I don't know how easy it is to get from England to here. But those are what I'm going to do differently. And I'm not going to quit. I've really enjoyed beekeeping. And even if I lose my second hive, which I hope I don't, I'm just trying to make the best of a bad situation. I'm going to give... There was a whole medium super of honey for my hive that died from Varroa mites. I'm going to feed that back to my hive that is still surviving and just hope for the best. So if you've lost your hive to Varroa mites, or if you have any suggestions, if you're a beekeeper or someone that's interested in beekeeping, if you have any suggestions about ways to lower mites, I would love to hear it, and who knows, maybe I'll try it. Until next time, just enjoy this beautiful fall day, and we'll catch you on the flip side.